The topic today is articulating IT's value proposition, and I'm joined by four beautiful people who are CIOs and experts in IT, and we're going to discuss that topic and make sure that we inform everybody of the various views that we've got around the virtual roundtable today. So just to go through some introductions, I'm Greg Lake. I was the founder of iCore and a senior consultant for iCore, and I'm here to just facilitate really, so won't be saying too much. But if I can ask the rest of the panel to introduce themselves, can we start with you, Nina, please?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Nina Tazzi. I'm currently transformation lead in British American Tobacco, looking at the business transformation aspects for a change. Before that, I've been the CIO for the European region in British American Tobacco, and been with FMCG more or less like 25 years now. And I'm interested in this session because it will actually help me refresh my understanding what we do and why in IT. I think it's interesting always to think and reflect on that. And now in transformation role, I think being more on the business side, I can appreciate more the value technology is adding. So I think I have now two perspectives to add to this conversation.
Brilliant, thank you. An advocate for it by the sounds of it. Can we move on to you, Dave, please?
Yeah, hello. So I'm Dave Roberts. I'm the Global IT Director at Stantec, and we're a sustainable engineering, design, architecture, and environmental services business with about 26,000 people across the globe. So my role is really looking after the regions outside of North America, so responsible for our APAC, EME, and LATAM regions. Also previously been a CIO in a payments business, and also non-exec director as well.
Fantastic, thank you, Dave. Natasha, ask you to go next, please.
Thanks, Greg. I'm Natasha Polderman. I've held senior IT leadership positions for around 20 years now. I've had the pleasure of working in America and Asia and Europe and the UK, largely in engineering firms, but also professional services. And recently I was the IT director at a law firm. This conversation is really interesting for me because I want to kind of give back in terms of my experience on how to talk to different people around the business. Sometimes it can be a really positive experience. Sometimes it can be quite challenging. So I'd like to give back, but also listen to what you guys have to say today.
Okay, thank you, Natasha. And finally on to somebody who's returning to the CIO Roundtable, Rick. Can you introduce yourself, please, sir?
Sure. My name is Rick Farrow. I'm currently IT and Transformation Director for the Financial Ombudsman Service. So most of you will have heard of that under some guise or another. Before this instance, I was CIO for the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority. So I've mainly been working in and around central government on large transformation in digital projects, especially with digital innovation and transformation in the business rather than just in IT and tech. So really, very much my wheelhouse in relation to this forum. It's great to meet, some like-minded colleagues on here, and looking forward to the session.
Brilliant, thank you all. So into the topic, and it is an interesting one, articulating IT's value proposition. I think in terms of a high-level definition, we probably all understand what the words mean. From a personal perspective, I think it's also about the timing of when you actually have to articulate IT's value proposition. So certainly, in my past, I've had to do it when it's an annual budget round. What's the value so you can get some more money? I've done it when to a business unit to stop shadow IT forming. I've done it to get investment for central IT programs. And also generally when people challenge you and say, what is it you do and what's the value to the business? So there are various times, and I guess the answer could be different for each time. But I'd like to start maybe with Natasha, with yourself. Now, what does it mean within your business, and when are you asked to do that, to value IT and tell people about it?
Yeah, I think it's important to note, Greg, that actually the term value can mean very different things across the business. And so it's important to understand who you're talking to in terms of your audience and what drives them. So for example, if you're talking to the board, they're going to want to know about growth. How can you increase the valuation of the company, productivity, etc. So those are, board level topics. But if you're speaking to somebody, say the financial controller, they're going to be interested in that at a high level, but they're also going to be interested in, is technology just working? So you've got that wide range between how can technology enable this business to grow, bring in revenue? What do the clients want? Can we sell it? To actually, is IT providing value at the foundational level? And if you're not getting it right at the foundational level, those conversations are going to be really hard. And I think that's the number one lesson I've learned across, my time is, if you rock up to a board meeting and you're asking for investment for, say, Gen AI proof of concept, brilliant. They're going to be excited about that. But if the meeting room equipment doesn't work or somebody's had a really bad experience with support, they're going to raise that. And then that's going to be looming over your head during that conversation. So, you have to get that balance right. As I said, some conversations are going to be easier than others. So that Gen AI conversation is going to be a lot easier because it's in the news, it's in the press.
Yeah.
The board is going to want to know what you're doing about that. But then there are other conversations that you actually need to have to keep technology running, like I have a lot of technical debt, or I have legacy systems, or I need to insource or outsource. Those conversations are not as exciting, but you have to have them because you need to keep that foundational level going. So, and when do you have those conversations? I don't like to be told that you have to prove the value. So you kind of need to be proactive about it and not just speaking to the board. You just need to communicate across all levels of the business.
Brilliant. Thank you, Natasha. Rick, can I move it on to you, sir? Just, I know this is a topic that interests you, and just listening to what Natasha was saying there, that certainly resonates with me. What about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I think the role of the IT leader has changed, emphatically over the last sort of 10, 15 years, in that it's no longer about the tin. It's no longer about just the applications. It's about being able to build a narrative around value, how you bring the business forward, how you change your data, how you reconstruct in relation to customer experience, how you look at those advanced efficiency within the processes of the business to make the entire organization more efficient. So there's lots of tools we can leverage. We all know the watchwords that are coming out there at the moment around AI, automation, machine learning. But you've got to leverage the right tool in the right place for the right outcome. And that's really, for me, that's my sweet spot. That's what I like to do, getting in amongst the problem, because at the end of the day, we're all problem solvers. That's what we are as IT leaders, and understanding the value proposition for a business and translating that into a number of portfolios, programs, and that's where the IT leader of today should really shine. And you should be able to build a resounding narrative that meets the board's needs, looks at the shareholders' needs, looks at really the UX and the CX throughout the business, and get everybody on board in relation to how you deliver that journey. It's not an easy thing to do. There's certainly in central government, it often takes a long time to get things going. The procurement procedures can be a little bit tough at times. But if you get your proposition right, you get everybody behind it, and how you translate that work into value, it's it can be a really, 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 probably the biggest value add you can do for any business is getting that digital program and the tools, the services, and the strategy right.
Yeah, and I guess it reflects the kind of changing role of the CIO over the years, to be honest, that articulating that and getting that message right for the business so it interests them and keeping it going is kind of key. Nina, can I move towards you and the transformation program? It's something that's obviously close to your heart too.
Yeah, sure. So I think it resonated a lot what Natasha said about um, computer equipment, meeting room equipment. Of course, when I was a CIO, the first thing before you do any budget and any day, you have to make sure that your board and all your stakeholders have reasonable equipment, preferably iPads, so they're comfortable with. so they don't look like very obsolete when they're traveling. So I think building up that perspective of them being already kind of leading edge helps, and that actually takes out the conversation about the core. And I think COVID has helped a lot to remove the conversation about core, because everybody understood what is the benefit of having the platform. So I think it was kind of, I hope it's kind of politically correct, positive thing for IT industry, kind of to remove that platform conversations, and it allows us to be this dual kind of focused. Leave us with the managing the core. We know what we are doing internally, like with the team. I always like to test that core thing against what if you outsource it. So you have to be, as internal IT, always able to kind of compete with what it is if you completely gave out the control. So for me, it's a kind of acid test, like, are we better than any third-party provider? And of course, with combination with them. And then you focus on what is transformation. Indeed, is the business changes and the new product launches, the new channel strategy. That's where you have to demonstrate that you're not just IT infrastructure lead, that you're actually the true business partner. That's why you have a seat at the management board level. So you keep your staff under control. They don't need to bother about that. But actually, then you participate in the conversation, and sometimes you lead these conversations. And that's how you actually sometimes get the transformation lead role, because you kind of start leading the conversations which are outside of your direct remit. And that's where I truly believe CIOs are becoming either transformation leads or CEOs of the organization, because we have, as IT leaders, the unique opportunity to see the whole business going kind of without any silos. So I think we are the integration leaders, and we are demonstrating that. And that's where I see those value adders coming with us to be integration leads, transformation leads, whatever you call it. And I think in the very close future, the CEOs of the organizations, because most of the organizations will be so digitally enabled that you actually will be the core of the business, the CEO. So I think that's the reality coming, and that's where the value is coming, and it's kind of becoming obvious.
Okay, no, that all makes sense. I mean, certainly, I've been in IT a long time, so I think the role of the CIO and the distinction between business and IT, and who leads and who adds value, and rather than them being a little bit separate with a wall in between, has totally changed, and long may it continue. Dave, can I perhaps bring your thoughts in now, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with what Natasha and Nina and Rick have all said. So it makes it a little bit more difficult when you go last on these things. But I think it's important that you really articulate the value of IT every single day. That you needed to weave it into various different meetings, conversations that you see. You're demonstrating, the value that technology brings to the organization overall, and that could be IT, it could be digital, it could be we've got business experience, we've got a whole variety of different teams involved in technology, which is really important. But going back to Natasha's point is one of the things I always say, which is you've got to get the basics right, because to get the basics right, that then allows you to move up the value chain, and then by moving up the value chain, you can then get into more transformational activities that really help to really transform the view of how technology is seen in the business, but how the benefit can add, and it sort of grows from that point. So I think you need to be very customer focused and results driven, and you need to make sure that the whatever technology goals you have, they're aligned with the wider business goals. And sometimes you hear people talking about IT and the business, and almost like they're two separate things. They are the same. IT is the business, and I think that's what everyone's you've got to really remember that. So looking at what are the goals for your organization, are you looking at from a technology perspective, are you looking at revenue generation? Are you looking at cost savings? Are you looking at efficiency? Is it customer satisfaction? Is it risk mitigation? Is it all of these things? They're all really important. What are you being asked for? And what's the most important thing to actually focus on? But don't wait to be asked what the value of IT is to the, to the organization. That if you're being asked, you haven't demonstrated it early enough in the conversation. So I think that's why I said it's something you do every single day. It's not waiting to articulate that value to someone.
No, thank you. And my introduction, I've been asked a few times, so I obviously wasn't doing that, Dave. I wasn't keeping it as a daily conversation. But no, you're quite right. And I think everybody's made some really good and valid points. But what are the obstacles to actually doing this? We haven't really we've touched on it a few times in this conversation so far. But I'd like to hear a bit more. I'm going to stick with you, Dave, a bit more about the obstacles that you've faced when you've been trying to talk about the value that IT adds.
And there can be various ones. I think communication is the most important factor around all of this. Good communication is going to help to drive better articulation of that value. So I think if you can help the business sometimes to understand what the ROI looks like, and that's sometimes difficult as an obstacle because sometimes they're over a longer period of time. So you've got a longer period of time before you're actually going to realize what the benefits are from those investments. But you've also got to be able to revisit those. So how often do we all get asked to do a business case and provide the ROI? But I think the important thing is actually going back and revisiting that and actually realizing those benefits and articulating that again in those success stories that we've got to put forward. Sometimes, you're dealing with budgetary constraints, and organizations go through those peaks and troughs, and you've got to cut your cloth accordingly from technology. But technology should be seen as an enabler to help do that as well. So that's an area where we should be trying to invest in. And again, it may be seen as an obstacle, but it can also be a value that you can try and articulate as well. Perhaps resistance to change as well. That's always people, not lack of understanding and not realizing the benefits that can come from it. Sometimes it's the fear of the unknown as well. So you got to take people on a journey sometimes to really get over those obstacles. But I think it all comes back to each one of those things. It all comes back to communication and ongoing communication about how to drive the value and trying to understand where people think there may be obstacles in place and how you can overcome them.
I think that makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm a consultant. I get asked to do this all the time, and it can get really difficult, particularly when there's a long ROI. I'm really tempted to go to RIC, but I've got a feeling that public sector is going to be a little bit different. So in terms of obstacles, but Natasha, perhaps I could come to you next.
Yeah, I thought they were really good points, Dave. What I was thinking about when you were talking is the fact that actually, we've all written really long business cases. We've thought about the return on investments. How can we properly, articulate that, especially to the CFO? But actually, there are times when perhaps we just need to be a bit more blunt and a bit more honest and say, look, guys, if we continue running on this platform or we continue running on this system, we're going to run into major problems in a year or whatever the time scale is. And I think sometimes we try and squeeze this impossible kind of profitable return on investment, when actually the return on investment is you'll have a stable system and you can't do anything about that at the end. So I thought that was one point that crossed my mind. The other obstacle is we're going to be talking about technology, and we have been talking about technology that occasionally can be quite complicated to explain. And there have been times in my career when I've made a right mess at a board level and I've gone way too far on the technology and I've tried to veer back and it just doesn't work. So, the lessons that I've learned is you need to speak in the business language. The business doesn't care really about all the stuff, the plumbing in the background, what, some leading edge technology solution. They don't care. What they care about is what is it going to do for my business, and that is the language you need to use.
Focusing on the business outcomes, I think that's the key to it. I absolutely agree, Natasha.
Yeah, Nina.
Yeah,
Obstacles?
that Absolutely resonates. Just the business outcomes. I remembered what helped me articulate best when I was in a beer company is try to translate all our projects into the quantity of bottle sold to the consumer at the end of any project. Because when you try to think, and I think the obstacle is ourselves, we are thinking to technology, we don't think what it is, the business result of it. And I think when we change it in our own heads, then we become not IT and business, we become business, because that's actually, I think the biggest obstacle is still that we think that we are IT and business. And that's where we have to cross that line and always think what is the final business outcome. It really helps. And also maybe not to go into that silent mode and always, as difficult as it is, go together into any articulation with your business colleagues, because it is difficult to explain. I understand Natasha's point, but it has to be the joint. We are not, there are some projects which are very technology, like upgrades or whatever, which you don't need that focus, but always having that joined up approach and bringing forward people from different functions to speak up um, is very helpful. Even like a kind of an auction, which we ran in when I was in GSK, was fantastic opportunity when business was coming and presenting together. And actually, it was a open auction who wins what. So there are different techniques to do it, but I think doing it together, doing it with a very clear business outcome, removes those boundaries and obstacles.
Thank you. You did briefly lose me when you said beer, and I had a moment there just because I quite like a beer. But we did a lot of work with Sad Miller, whose strapline was making a difference through beer, and that sticks with me forever. I think it's very easy to link things into
Sticks
that.
with me 16 years of my life. So it's
Exactly,
you
exactly.
could not get it out of your system.
Finally, to you, then, Rick. So obstacles, sir. What have you come across?
Yeah, sorry for the background. I was on IBM today, so I'm just trying to find somewhere quiet. Yeah, so it is a tough asking, especially in the public sector, because every pound's public money and it's under additional scrutiny, and audit controls are tight. So I've always thought having a really watertight benefits case as part of the part of the plan for the project, and having that as sort of plan on a page and then benefits case on a page really helps in relation to getting some of the backing that you need per project, because boards and stakeholder groups don't want to go into a lot of detail unless there's massive risk around the thing and it's falling to bits. I think in relation to blockers, I guess the key thing for me is building up momentum, and as we've as everyone on the call said, building that narrative around an idea to simply solve a problem. I think building that momentum is difficult because there is often a number of options that present their own challenges and present their own opportunities, and getting that message right, I think, is absolutely critical. And again, you've got to be able to do that as an IT leader. And more than anything, from the benefits case. So when we look at public sector bodies, for example, the benefits case is very weighted in relation to, do we do the project or not? Do we make a decision to make the change? And having those, as reasonable benefits, smart objectives, the return on investment is well understood, and it's measured against a quality assurance program over a number of years. If you can line all that up, then I think you're in a really great space in relation to getting things off the ground. I think from a technology perspective, I'm sure every leader on the call would agree that we probably get approached by 25 different organizations a day in relation to, we can do this, we can do it cheaper, we can do it better, we can do it faster. Well, that's all fine. But I think for me, having some really, really quality, trusted partners to work with in relation to some of the bits you're trying to deliver is absolutely vital, because I think one of the main blockers in our industry is that the quality and the consistency of suppliers to be able to deliver on a project or a change. And something I'm going through right now, having joined the financial ombudsman a couple of months ago, and we've got 1 or 2 projects that are really going awry, and you know, the pressure is already building from board in relation to the benefits case, and when we're going to be getting that investment back. So it's not an easy job, is it? It's a tough one, and I don't think anyone's really got all the answers, but I'm certainly open to colleagues on the call telling me how to do it better.
Well, no, I think that's a good point. I think we can all learn from each other on this. But I'm going to call an end to this session now, if I may, because I think we've had a good run round the topic, and hopefully whetted people's appetite to hear about it and learn more. So would just like to finish up. Hopefully we've given people a decent viewing over their breakfast. We've helped them with their train journey, wherever they end up watching this session, and would love to hear people's comments and any other views on what we've discussed today. But to finish, I'd like to say thank you to Natasha, Nina, Rick, Dave. You've all been fantastic, and hopefully we'll have another session on different topics, or maybe a follow-up to this one. So thank you for your time.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.